Hurricane Labs. I'm going to say Hurricane Labs like 100 times in here. It's not because I'm trying to sell you anything. It's because of the policy that we have at Hurricane that's going to occur. Also, like the guy said, if you guys have any questions, if I go too fast, or if I'm talking about something that isn't interesting and you want me to talk about something that is, let me know and I can focus it in whatever direction you like. About me, I used to be a professional magician, an award-winning published professional magician. I'm still some of those things. I have a degree in mathematics. I love mathematics, and I'm a penetration tester at Hurricane Labs. So I felt like I should tell you why I should pay attention for the rest of the thing. All right, is anyone in here a pen tester? Cool. Security guys in general, I assume that like you do security at your company. Business guys, like managers, that type. Anybody in here? Couple? Cool. So pen testers, I'm a pen tester. You're probably not going to, if you do network pen testing, this talk isn't really going to help you much. Most of this stuff is essentially about how to attack someone with physical access, the people that you work with. So, and it's more fun and mischievous. Security guys and managers, the subtext of this talk essentially is about a policy that Hurricane Labs has that encourages me to do a ton of work outside of work for my own fun in a tricky way. So it allows them to get more out of me, and it also improves the security of the company. Hurricane Labs, sorry to keep saying Hurricane Lab. I don't want this to just be an advertisement. But that policy is essentially we're encouraged to mess with everyone at our company. If someone leaves their laptop unlocked, they're going to send an email to the entire company about lunch being on them, if we feel nice. The second time it happens, they usually have to reinstall the operating system, the whole operating system. We use, that means on my first day there, the system administrator, he's not here, McMaster, he was our head system administrator at the time, which is system administrator, you should trust him. I went to grab some paperwork, and when I came back, he was installing a backdoor on my system within an hour of me getting in the office. Before I had finished installing my system, he was installing a backdoor. So you don't leave your computer unlocked. You lock your computer no matter what. If it's unlocked, if you can't lock it, you don't leave it, you turn it off. The kind of situation that we're in is everyone is either using Mac or Linux. We all are required to have full disk encryption, and we have this policy of constant threat, which means we constantly defend. I have to defend from Patrick, who sits across from me, and he's a lot harder to defend against than some random attacker because he knows when I go to get coffee, he knows the coffee shop I go to, he knows when I go because I'm offering to bring him coffee. He'll go with me and keep me there while Corey, who sits next to me, will do something to my computer. And I have stories upon stories of just that kind of stuff. We're in the building next door. One day I was hiding in this parking lot while Corey showed up so that Patrick could take Corey out to get coffee so that I could run upstairs with my computer booted with a script ready to hit enter on that would mess with Corey's unencrypted boot partition in order to gain control of his computer just so that it will talk to him at one point or another. So that being said, we also have to be nice. So I'm not necessarily recommending this policy because not everyone's going to be nice about it. It's hard to tell what's in scope and what's out of scope, and we ourselves have had problems. So I'm not going to recommend this policy by any means. That being said, there's a bunch I've gotten into several people's computers at work. There's a bunch of neat, fun stories and that kind of a thing. I'm going to present on some of the fun ones. If you leave your computer unlocked, one person didn't have full disk encryption, so that was easy. If you leave your computer unlocked, that's not very fun. The more interesting things. And my favorite one is the, if you leave your computer unlocked, one person didn't have full disk encryption, so that was easy. If you leave your computer unlocked, that's not very fun. The more interesting things. And the my favorite one is the, if you leave your computer unlocked, one person didn't have full disk encryption, so that was easy. If you leave your computer unlocked, that's not very fun. a Screensaver Attack. So this is a generic version of Ubuntu, a parody of Ubuntu Screen Lock. And this is what most of the people that I work with see every day before they go to the bathroom or go get coffee or go whatever. And then when they come back, they see this. If they came back and there was 2 computers, though, that looked exactly the same, my company buys a bunch of computers that are exactly the same, how would they know which computer is which? That terrified me for a year. There's a story of Joe, one of the guys that we work with. He just locked his computer and switched to computers because a person sitting next to him forgot to lock theirs. And that gave him more time to talk to that person's wife over chat. So we have a lot of stories about this policy. But this policy also, so that means, I thought I could take it further. So there's 3 different attack vectors that I came up with. My original idea was physically switching laptops, that I could make a fake operating system, install it to an empty partition on my computer, have a malicious version of the screensaver, physically switch that computer with their computer, and there wouldn't be any difference between the 2. And then at that point, they type in their password into a malicious computer, which sends the password across the wire to Patrick's computer, who's sitting in another room with me and their computer, so we can unencrypt it and drive away and just get as much time as we can with their computer. Because at some point, after they've tried to log in 100 times, they're going to realize something's wrong. If they reboot it, it's not going to reboot properly, those kinds of things. I improved upon it, though, by switching the operating system. And this is an attack that I actually successfully pulled off on one of our former employees. And it's one of the best things I've ever done, I think. And one of the worst things I've ever done. I had so many problems with it. But I live boot he was running a Crunchbang. You guys know that. It's my favorite Linux distribution. But he was running that with X Screensaver as the screensaver. So X Screensaver is open source, which isn't the vulnerability in this, by the way. You can do this with closed source code. Anyways, I opened the source code up. This is actually the long way around. Opened the source code up, added a socket that sends all password attempts to me, lets 3 password attempts happen, and then does a malloc fork bomb, which sucks up resources like mad, and your computer just freezes. When he left to go get coffee, I live booted this operating system, which immediately went into auto logged in, automatically locked the screen, made a screensaver that looked exactly like his screensaver. He came back to a desktop that looked exactly like his desktop. Of course, he's going to type his password in. He types his password in, and the computer freezes. Linux problems, things that were just kind of buggy. Really, it was the password got sent to me through a shell or a socket, and it was a malloc fork bomb that crashed his computer. So he did a hard reset, just as I did earlier. So even when his computer turns back on, you can remove the USB drive once the malicious X Screensaver program is loaded in memory. So there's not even a USB drive in there. So when he reboots, it's not going to, the boot priority is going to reset, and everything will be just the way it was. So we did that and made his computer talk to him later. I spent like 10 hours trying to get his computer to talk to him. It was dumb. The new idea that I have is to switch users. Not like in that picture, though. The Ubuntu, which a lot of our people use, has by default guest sessions enabled. Are you guys familiar with that? You can enable it on Windows as well, which allows you to, when you lock the screen, in the upper right corner there's a button, and you can click on it and say log in as a different user. Click guest session, and then you have a Ubuntu operating system with no password, but nothing is saved to the hard drive, which is to my benefit. Once we get there, that looks surprisingly like, oh, that doesn't work. Hold on. That was going to be really triumphant, too. My desktop is 1080 by 1920, so it's much different. That doesn't scale properly, but that's the idea. That's a website. The coloring's a little bit off. So the idea is there's URL parameters that fill in this part, DennisGoodlett. It says down here Ubuntu and 14.04 LTS. That's a URL parameter that I can change to be 12.04 or whatever I want. It says in the upper right corner, my first computer, that can be set. So the idea is someone leaves their computer locked, they walk away, I sneak over, sign into guest session, open a web browser. I actually download a script. I automate the whole thing with the Ducky as the plan. I haven't done this yet. I'm looking forward to it, though. The script automatically opens the web browser with the appropriate URL parameters. The script pulls those URL parameters from the operating system itself. It should be able to ls/home and see what the username is. It should be able to run hostname and see what the hostname is. So it's just going to run Firefox --new--tab $, parentheses, hostname, so on and so forth. So then this will pop up. It'll look like theirs. The time will even be correct. Right-clicking is disabled. It may not be disabled. No, it's not in this version. I was playing around a little bit. Right-clicking will be disabled. You can do HTML is made to look. They made HTML to make images look whatever way you want them to, so it's perfect for this. So whether it's Ubuntu or Windows, it doesn't matter. I don't need the actual source code for the program. I just make a picture that looks like it and has a text box that you can type into. So this doesn't look, the coloring's messed up and all that. On my screen, I promise it looks beautiful. I haven't tested on, I have a spare version of the computers that are used at work, so I'm going to test it on that, of course, and then try it on someone for real. But it's the same idea. They type their password into there. It gets sent through an encrypted channel just to a web server. Web server logs it with username, host name, all that kind of information, has it nice and tidy for me. And then the script that's running in the background still automatically logs that user out. It can even pop up an error message or something that, like segment fault or some whatever. So if there's any flashes or anything as the user logs out. I haven't tested the logout function. I'm afraid it's going to give it away. But anyways, it logs out, and then I have their password on a separate server. So like I said, this freaked me out, that something like this would happen, especially after I got it to work on one of our users. So I wanted a defense against it. The defense is crazy and convoluted, and I don't think any real person would actually use it, but I'm going to show you guys anyways. Your screensaver. Also what I was thinking, so on occasion we do physical access social engineering where we show up to some place and convince them that we're supposed to work there. And we try and walk in as far as we can, try and type on computers, try and get information, those kinds of things. I really want to do that with a Windows computer. One of the places, the only time I've ever gone, they had a kiosk machine inside of there was a pool table and some other cool stuff, and there was just a Windows computer there. And you could access the actual tower. And it had a domain login. So if you typed you could log in as a domain user. So if I had a live boot of this, essentially, then I could render a live boot of Linux. That opens up a web browser to a picture of Windows login that you can type into. Disables all possible keys that could do anything bad, like Control, Alt, Delete, Escape, all those things, and full screens it. So then, and then just leave it. The original idea was, eventually crash the computer purposely. They reboot it and everything's fine. But it's even better just to leave it all day. That someone's going to want to come over and I want to check my email, and type in their domain password and it won't work. They'll type it in, it won't work, and each time our server gets a new password. If it doesn't work enough, either they're going to reboot it, jiggle the cord or whatever they do, or call tech support. And the first thing tech support is going to do is come over and type in their password to see if it works. And if that doesn't work, maybe an administrator password would work. And you just let it go all day. Disable anything that could take it off the screen. And all those weird nuances just make it seem more like the operating system is broken. Eventually, when they power the computer on and back on, off and back on, it deletes everything that's happened after I've pulled the USB drive, and all the information's gone, other than the log files will show power on and off, discrepancy, and time period. So that'll be neat. The defense is crazy because I'll show you my defense. Did it pop? Oh, that's not bright enough at all. Let's see. Can you see that?
Yeah, see a swirl.
Yeah, just all kinds of crazy, weird stuff. The idea is, so my computer doesn't let me know that it's him. My computer has an identity. I only want to type my password into my computer. There's no way with a normal screensaver to know that that is my computer. So there's already a bunch of stuff about mutual authentication, a bunch of cryptography and mathematics and stuff, but I can't do that stuff in my own head. So I need something that can do the mathematics for me, which I figured would be a cell phone because we all carry cell phones all the time. I really don't want to connect anything to a computer that's malicious. I also don't want to connect it, especially wirelessly, because I can't prove that it's that computer that my phone is connected to wirelessly. Someone could have a computer in another room that's still reachable by the wireless signal and then broadcast to their malicious computer a pop-up or something like that. So the idea is it changes every 30 seconds, the image. Some of them are going to be, that one's cool. Some of them are going to be more interesting. You can see as it cycles, you see how it's distorted in some way. And that is the idea for mutual authentication. Imagine one of the ways to do mutual authentication is someone presents a problem and then the other person presents a solution. So if we meet and I want to prove it's me, you can bring a Rubik's Cube that you've done 16 moves on, and then you hand it to me when we meet and I undo those 16 moves. If when I undo those 16 moves, it's a normal Rubik's Cube complete, then that must mean that you knew the 16 moves beforehand. If I undo them and they watch that there's no tricky business, that I didn't take it apart or something or pull the stickers off, I only know those 16 moves either if I'm a genius or that I knew the 16 moves ahead of time. So that's this idea is I took a picture of a fractal. So I'm creating a Julia set fractal and then messing it up a great deal according to 10 different functions. Those 10 functions correspond to a two-factor token that Google two-factor has on your cell phone. You guys use that at all? So when I type in let's see. It's about to change. Hold on. 811915. And I hit the button to pause it. So that's not messed up. That's what the Julia set is actually supposed to look like. One of those crazy psychedelic images that stoners rave about. I've paused it now so that as I cycle through, these are versions of a Julia set. So when you type in each character, it essentially does and I can clear the, that's what it looks like next up. When I type in, so the number 1 does a sinusoidal wave over the whole thing. So when I hit 1, you'll see pixels move up and down according to a sine wave, and it's 1 twice in a row. And then you can see those boxes become flatter and nicer. The idea is, I didn't want to actually use a Rubik's Cube. There's already screensavers with Rubik's Cube. That's not why I didn't want to use it. But a Rubik's Cube, you can take a picture of a Rubik's Cube, and then you could image correct it and create a new Rubik's Cube. So an attacker could put down a false computer, go into another room with the real computer, take a picture of the Rubik's Cube that the real computer has on the screen, image correct it, and broadcast it to the false computer. It's a ridiculous attack, but this hopefully gets rid of that, because trying to take a picture of this and communicate it properly should, I would hope, be more difficult. This is no, that's not it, sorry. This is what I use to test the functions on. I love mathematics, so I've been playing with group theory on it. So this is the 1 key again. 2 key does it vertically. The 5 key does the tessellations, I guess you'd call it. So yeah, the attacks on this are if you can figure out a solution to it. So I'm trying to make operations that are hard to solve without commutativity and some other neat math stuff. If a malicious computer could stream your entire screen, that is, if they can connect a display port or a HDMI to the outside and just put the whole screen somewhere else, but that's easy to stop. And malicious image corrects, like the idea of a Rubik's Cube being corrected. But my solution does satisfy these desired things that I have. I don't want anything connected to my computer. My computer doesn't need to be connected to the internet. All it needs to know is a proper time, which is kind of tricky. My phone needs to have a proper time. It doesn't have to be connected to the internet because it uses the TOTP protocol. Easily visualized. Each operation should be easily visualized. The sine wave, because if you hand them a Rubik's Cube and they turn their back and come back and it's solved, then that's not proof that they knew the moves. Each move needs to be easily visualized so that when you hit the 1 key, you see the sinusoidal wave collapse. Otherwise, if just each key did something random to fix it, then a malicious computer will just fix it no matter what key they press. Operations don't self-commute. That word? Yeah, communicate. I don't want, that's desired. I don't have that yet. That's really difficult because of group theory, but I don't think you guys are interested in that. Yeah, the bad part is it's going to be a pain to type in your thing every time you come back from the bathroom and your password. So it's probably not going to happen. The other thing is it's rendering a Julie set takes a lot of computational power, or can. I'm using OpenGL, the same engine that they use for video games. But really, I feel like the worst part about it is just typing in the password. But that password can also be used as a 2-factor token, and that one token can be mutual authentication. So knowing that token will prove that it's, rather than just that token proving that it's my computer, it'll also show that I'm me as well, and it'll allow me into the laptop. So this is my next attack. Are there any questions on the malicious screensaver stuff? Yeah.
Well, first off, it's my first time here. So
Okay.
So I'm just wondering how much actual work gets done.
Oh yeah. These guys do. Yeah, that's. I put way too much time into that screensaver, and that's the 4th version of the screensaver too, and I've had other ideas. My original idea was to make a Julia set and use that as a hash. Essentially, that I wanted a picture hash. If you just put like, you can't just put the TOTP token, the 6-digit number on your computer, because an attacker can just read it and type it into a computer and broadcast it. So it needs to be something that can't be broadcasted. So I was wondering, like, it'd be really cool if there's the cool images on my computer actually are the cool images on my phone, and them corresponding proves that it's my computer. But I'm not smart enough in math to figure out how to do that. But yeah, we do work. That's not the best part of it, but we do work, and we work hard. Most of this stuff is stuff that I did at home for fun, and that's what this policy is about. Essentially, is that's not. I don't think that's actually what the policy is about, and I don't think many other people at the company spend this much time making cryptographic multi-authentication screensavers with Julia set fractals. But this policy has allowed me to do that and given me reason to do that. And it's given me problems that I was not as good at coding at C, and I was not as good at reading or coding in C as I am now because of all the stuff that I've done, that I've had to go through much deeper X Screensaver source code to figure out how to implement this into X Screensaver and so on and so forth.
So is the purpose of this to encourage all the worker bees where you're at to
Right.
pay attention to security,
Mhm.
pay attention to their computers, and don't leave them,
You don't leave them
and
unlocked,
there's
right?
a reward if they do?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, complete check.
So yeah, well, like this presentation essentially is, yeah, like getting to, and it's not really like it's kind of tricking me into learning stuff,
Well,
and
one of my old students works for a company, and if the security officer sees an unattended laptop, even the CEO, he takes it,
mm-hmm.
and they have to sit through a 2-hour video to get it back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we, yeah, I wrote, speaking of waste of time, I spent a great deal of time, we used to use Pigeon a lot in chat. Some of the companies migrated to another version, some of them, me included, still really like Pigeon better. Just before we migrated over, I finished a backdoor in Pigeon that I could use. I also finished, I really like the idea of, so I'm a math geek, so I love these problems, and that's really like, I love, it's really stupid that I would make that screensaver, but I love the problem and I love engaging in it. Which is essentially what pen testing is about, is looking at a giant box and figuring out how you can get in. So yeah, so at one point I had the idea of if I compromise somebody, and I had 2 people compromised at the time that I was waiting to figure out. It's not easy to tell somebody that, like, yeah, I rooted your box and you're dumb. You can't say it that way, and it's hard to say it. It's hard to, we usually make the computer talk to them, but there's still kind of like oh man, how did they get me? I'm not, I don't want that feeling of insignificance or stupidity or any of that kind of stuff, because who wouldn't have typed in their password when they come back to their computer and it looks exactly the same? So it's not about I'm better than you and you don't know anything. Security's hard. So anyways, I had this idea to add a Pigeon plugin that wouldn't advertise itself to multiple users in the company after I've broken into their computer. And anytime that I would type into chat with the whole company, where my bro's at, something like that, anyone that was compromised would say, here I am. But you could not see if you said, here I am. So only other people could see that. So if I'm compromised, I see like 4 other people respond. I don't see myself respond. So then it's a game to figure out how do you prove whether you're compromised or not. And there's actually a trick to do it, but if you think you're compromised, I'll tell you later.
How many attempts could you get with your screensaver before it did something different, or did it let you unlimited number of times to try?
With my screensaver?
Yeah.
As it is, it's not completely done yet. I haven't figured out. I'm terrified of actually messing with X Screensaver's part of the source code because he knows what he's doing and I don't. So as far as I'm not a developer, so I need to get keys, the 0 through 9 keys from X Screensaver's code into they call it a hack. So I need to get it into my screensaver part. But the whole point of a screensaver is to stop that from happening. So I haven't finished it yet in that respect. But it's every 30 seconds, it's a new picture, and you have 30 seconds to guess 6 numbers and try and break it. Right now, there's only 5 operations, but they're repeated modulo. So, but when I first made it, I had 2 operations repeated 6 times. So it was one of 2 operations, 6 of them. And I let Patrick and some other people try and figure out it's either 1 or 2, a 6-digit number of either 1 or 2. 1 does this way, 2 does this way. Figure out, is it 11112 or is it 11121, that kind of a thing in 30 seconds. And no one could do it with just 5 numbers, or 2 numbers.
Yeah, why are you giving people a hint?
Hmm?
You're essentially giving people a hint.
Yeah, but I need to know that the computer knows is the hard part. So the computer needs to essentially hold the secret out of my reach the entire time so that eventually I know that the computer had the secret the entire time. So it's hard to, and that's where I'm looking forward to talking to one of my math friends. I'm looking for, one of my friends is actually good at mathematics. I have a bachelor's degree in mathematics. He's he's working on his PhD. So I'm interested in talking with him about, I would prefer the problem be NP complete. So even supercomputers would have an incredibly difficult time of taking this messed up image and converting it into a appropriate image. Any more questions on the screensaver? Cool. So the other neat trick that I did, so I broke into one person's computer doing the screensaver. It took hours upon hours. I've hopefully streamlined the process so that I can do it faster now. So hopefully next time you see me, I'll have a couple other people from the web browser version. I've also broken into one person's computer. It's actually Patrick. No, he already knew about it. This one. So, and I feel bad about it because I think Patrick's really paranoid now because of it. On Linux, we're required by our company to have full disk encryption. This saves a great deal of security, and it's something that I highly recommend. If the computer is lost, of course, private data isn't obtainable. But moreover, if you leave your computer and go out to lunch, I'll turn it off, pull the hard drive out, and see if I can change stuff inside of it. If it's all encrypted, then I have no idea what I'm changing, what it'll have, and eventually the encryption is just going to get mad when they try to decrypt it, which is part of the be nice, don't just destroy people's hard drives. So yeah, so in Linux though, if you Google around for it, you'll see a ton of people telling you that the boot drive is unencrypted of a Linux computer because the grub bootloader cannot decrypt, de-encrypt. As it turns out, that's wrong. I found out last week, which means these slides still aren't updated and assume that it is possible. But grub can decrypt boot partitions. So currently, the boot partition for this computer I keep on a USB drive, and it's completely encrypted. The only unencrypted part of this is the master boot record. So they would have to mess with the binary stuff, and I'm not entirely that's above my head. But I keep it in my pocket regardless. So the attack is the boot partition has your RAM disk in it. Your RAM disk is like a little mini operating system, a little mini Linux operating system that puts everything in place for when your real operating system shows up. The RAM disk is what decrypts your root partition. So if you have an unencrypted root partition but an encrypted home directory, then I am going to add your cron tab or network manager, those kinds of things are unencrypted, and they run programs that are just files if they're put in the right place in the right format. So if it's unencrypted and I can write to it, then I'll write something mean to it. The boot partition is a little bit trickier, but if the RAM disk is just a gunzipped, is that how you say it, gunzip? Okay, a gunzipped CPIO file. So if you ungunzip and then uncpio it, then it's a directory structure, and inside of there's a script that part of that script is to decrypt your root partition, but it's still running parts of that script after the root partition is decrypted. So I wrote a script because of all the free time I have at home that essentially, because of that, me and some of the other guys, Patrick, one of them, are all paranoid about our boot partition. So part of being nice at work means you don't just turn someone's computer off when they're doing hard work to check to see if their boot drive is unencrypted or to see if they have a hardware. We used to have ThinkPads, and the hard drive in the ThinkPad has a firmware lock on it that you can set. So then, even though your boot partition is unencrypted, the firmware lock will stop you from modifying the boot partition. Unless, I suspect, you pull the platters out and use a magnetic needle or something like that, but that's beyond me. So Patrick used to leave his USB drive in his computer when he went to go get coffee in the morning. You show up, you put your computer down, it takes like 30 seconds to boot. That 30 seconds you could be having coffee during. So as it's turning on, you type in your passphrase or whatever. You run over, get your coffee, come back, and it's at your login screen. You type in your password to log into your computer. So he left. One night I spent a couple hours writing a script that would automatically grab every one of his RAM disks, ungunzip, uncpio it, adds some stuff to the init script, and then fix it back up and put it in the appropriate place. So then the next day when he ran off to go get coffee, I sprinted around my desk, grabbed his boot drive was on a USB drive, which is good if you keep it in your pocket, but he left it in his computer. So I grabbed it out of his computer, plugged it into my computer. The script was ready to go. It immediately backdoored all of his RAM disks and then pulled it back out, plugged it back into his computer, and he was none the wiser. So then later that day, I social engineered him to reboot his computer in order to stop that attack, actually. I was telling him about that attack that I learned how to do, and that he should really have an MD5 sum of every one of his RAM disks and every file inside of his boot partition. So, as I do. So I gave him my script it's a find xargs command, essentially, that goes through each file, does an MD5 sum of them, and then stores them in a text file inside of your encrypted root partition. So he did that, got MD5 sums of all his files that are already backdoored. And the best way to check this is to reboot. When you reboot, it runs the RAM disk, which caused an extra file to appear inside of the network manager, so that whenever you connected to Hurricane Labs' wireless network, it would run a script that would send a reverse shell to my computer, giving me complete access to his computer. The shell network manager runs as super user, so it would be a root user already. Patrick caught me in 3 seconds. Patrick's one of them. I literally got off 2 commands, and I was getting ready to cat files that would have passwords in them. And I hit enter on that command, and it hung up. And then, so I started scrambling, like, is there a connection and all those kinds of things. And I heard him say, did you root me? Yeah, I got you. So then we fixed it up. Patrick's crazy. He caught my backdoor in 5 seconds because he smelled something out of whack, and he checked log files and his connections, found the connection, killed all networking immediately. I had commands ready to go, and he still caught me before I got anything malicious off. That being said, he didn't trust that I didn't get anything malicious off, and he completely reinstalled his computer. As well he should. Yeah. I mean, that wasn't the point of it, and I felt really bad. And now, and also now, when I'm mean too, so I'll go up and walk away, and he's like, "Oh, what'd you do?" and that kind of a thing. But we all do it to each other. But it's that's the idea. So the defense for the unencrypted boot partition is to put on a USB drive and to hide it. Was my original idea, but it turns out a week ago I found that you could actually encrypt your boot partition. We got new laptops, and I don't like Arch Linux, but as it turns out, Arch Linux was oddly enough easier to get to work on here than Debian or Kali, as amazing as that sounds. So I'm running Arch on here and Googling around for trying to find out neat ways of doing certain things that I want in my laptop. I found someone who explains how to encrypt your root partition for Arch, and there's another blog post that he did on how to encrypt it for Mint. So if you're interested, just Google for full disk encryption Arch boot, and you should come across it. Are there any questions? I'm running out of time, so I'll just mention a Ducky is, you guys know what a Ducky is, the Hack 5 Ducky. You plug it in and it acts like a keyboard. It can also, I wrote a defense against that for Linux using udev, so the Ducky can pose as any device, so whitelisting and blacklisting won't work. I can make the Ducky claim that it is your keyboard. I can unplug your keyboard, plug it into my computer when you're not around, get your vendor ID of your keyboard, product ID, that information, and tell the Ducky to advertise that. So there's no real way that you can trust the device that's being plugged into your computer. Your computer needs to be the one that has the defense against those devices. So I don't, for some reason, the udev rule doesn't work on this computer yet, so I'm terrified. But the idea is, I wrote, it's on my GitHub and available now if you're interested. It works on Debian, and it's a setuid program written in C that all it does is add a udev rule that blocks all USB devices. Every time the program exits, it blocks all USB devices. If you run the program and the block all rule is already in place, it allows any USB device that is not a keyboard. This stops the attack of a USB device can claim to be multiple items, so it can be a USB drive and a keyboard. So I can tell you this is a USB drive, you plug it in, it acts as a USB drive. 15 seconds later, though, it starts typing things. So in that situation, the way to catch that is to go through dmessage and some other stuff that's ugly. Instead of that, just block anything that isn't a keyboard. The problem is there's a guy that works with us named Joe that when he found out I had this udev rule, would unplug my keyboard at every opportunity, which means my keyboard is now blocked, and I have to use this keyboard, which I hate, to get into the computer, type my password in to unlock my computer, use sudo to revert the rule, and so on and so forth. So if you run udev, the program's called udev paranoia. If you run it with one argument, any number of arguments, then it allows any USB drive. And it always allows this for 10 seconds. Every time it exits, it adds the block all rule. And unless it's kill -9, if it gets that signal, it can't process it, and it dies immediately. But otherwise, you should be safe. So yeah, that's the defense. Is there any questions? Yes.
What has Patrick done with your computer?
You know of.
I'm terrified too. I don't act terrified because that'll show weakness, and I shouldn't be saying this. But like, so like I've come back in, and my computer's purposely faced away from them because I might leave my computer unlocked. And I've done it before, and when I come back, I'm not one of the people that like, oh, I left my computer unlocked, because I don't want to encourage them. So yeah, I'm always terrified. But I don't think he's done anything too big to me. They have gotten me back in various ways. When I get involved into a problem, I forget that the world around me exists. So one day they built a giant fort around my desk of boxes. We do work, I promise. We built a giant fort of boxes around my desk, and then eventually I looked up from, I think I was working on SQL injection or something really difficult. And I looked up and I'm surrounded by a fort, and then I went on my honeymoon, and when I came back from my honeymoon, all the boxes were wrapped in Christmas paper, and my keyboard and monitor and some other things were in those boxes, but they themselves didn't know which boxes, so I had to spend like 20 minutes going through it. So yeah, everything goes around. I don't really have any more time, so I can't get to this stuff. I don't want to keep you guys over. I don't want to slow down the next person. So is there any more questions?
You can keep going.
Okay.
You know, have a little extra time.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just be quick then. This new pro thief stuff is essentially, I've grown to really enjoy the defensive side of things. I used to be a professional magician, so I love being mischievous. But I've learned that the defensive side of things is neat in that once you have a defense, that's the defense that gets used forever. So if I work on a defense for something, that actually stays. If I work on an exploit, that exploit's going to last for a week, and then they'll patch it. So at any rate, I really like the mischievous side. So I decided to backdoor my own computer in case someone stole it. And the idea is, so I have two operating systems on this computer. It's a System 76 computer, so it came with Ubuntu. If you guys use Linux on your laptops, and it comes with Windows, don't get rid of Windows. Use that as your backdoor. So the idea is, you shrink your Windows partition, make another partition for your computer, encrypt it with full disk encryption, all those things. Put your boot directory on your USB drive with an encrypted boot partition. Now that I can encrypt my boot partition, I do not know the password. I do not know a password for my root partition. I cannot unencrypt my root partition. There's a key file inside of this thing that can unencrypt my root partition. So I have to have this. Any attacker that wants to get into my computer will have to have this USB drive. But it's also encrypted, so they need a password to open this up, to open that up, so it becomes two-factor, so on and so forth. But the MBR, the grub for my computer, for my real operating system, is written to the MBR of this USB drive. So I plug this in, turn my computer on. Once everything's decrypted, I unmount this and put it in my pocket. If you were to turn this computer on right now, if you were to reboot right now, it would boot into Ubuntu, and there would be no sign of the other Linux operating system. I haven't done it yet, but I've considered, so the idea is if I'm at a coffee shop and I don't want to turn my computer off to go to the bathroom and take it with me or something like that, and I leave and I come back and my computer's gone, I don't want the attacker to get any information off of my computer. So the first thing I want to do is if it's powered on, I want it to turn off. So I wrote a script that checks to see if I'm still connected to Wi-Fi. And after if I go like 5 minutes without being connected to the Wi-Fi that I was connected to, it turns the computer off. In the last minute, it starts making crazy weird noises and beeping and that kind of stuff to warn me just in case I forget. But that's the idea. So then if they get away and they have my USB drive for some reason, they need to be able to decrypt this USB drive. With the old thing, with the I haven't figured it out yet with Grub, but the prompt that says please type in your passphrase with the without, I haven't figured out with an encrypted boot partition yet. But that prompt for your encrypted root partition in the old system that I used, I changed it to say error, please remove USB drive and reboot. So when I see error, please remove USB drive and reboot, I type in my password. When someone steals my laptop and sees that, if the drive is still in there, they're going to, oh, I forgot to take the USB drive out. And they take it out, reboot it, resets the priority of the boot devices, and it'll boot into my malicious operating system that's backdoored and will call back home, and I can use it to take pictures of the person who stole it, get the GeoIP stuff, those kinds of things. Additionally, I can destroy this if it ever gets plugged into the malicious computer so that he can't get into my, so that nobody can decrypt my root partition. I do have a backup of a second key that's encrypted with AES-256 on a public server, so if this ever does break and I'm stranded somewhere, as long as I can get into another server from a live distribution, I can unencrypt my root partition. So then, anyways, that's the fun part, is you get to break your own computer. You get to add backdoors to your own computer, try and bypass your own antivirus, all those things that you're not supposed to do. And then the idea is, if someone ever does get your computer, it stinks though, because now I want someone to steal my computer. Because hopefully this never happens, and I've just spent hours to do this. Just like my screensaver, I don't expect anyone's going to boot a fake distribution to actually do this. But now the chances of them doing it are nil. So anyways, that's the idea. My to-do list is just the things that I haven't completed. So my screensaver doesn't work all the way. I do want a false password when I log in with a PAM module, so that if someone tries to log in with the password, it would just turn my computer off. And I did get two-factor crypto working, as I told you. And then the false OS extends. Oh yeah, the false OS. I was wanting to get it so that when the false OS boots, it extends the partition past, so that there's not even a partition for my real operating system. But I don't actually want it to delete my real operating system, and I don't know enough about partitions to do that yet. So here's my contact information. The scripts that I've written, some of them are on Git. Once my screensaver actually works, I'll put it on my Git there. Everything I've written is essentially for Linux, though, so I don't suspect many of you use Linux laptops, but at any rate. And some of the information I presented on is in a couple of the things that I presented on is in my blog posts that I did for my company. So, any questions? What's that? Extending. Yeah. I've done it on accident before, but I'm still terrified about it. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Cool. I might try it then. I don't know. I'm terrified of it, but yeah. It's neat if you do that with Windows as your first operating system. It doesn't even recognize exit. So you make your other partitions exit, which Linux likes. Windows has no idea what it is and doesn't show up in any of as a D drive or an E drive or anything like that. Anything else?
Yeah, since you guys install your operating systems every other day, do you keep your real work out in the cloud, or you guys have a separate server that you keep most of the
I can't really speak for most of the company because I don't talk to many people. But I have a feeling you're getting my personality. The pen testers keep a lot of their stuff. We all log into the same server through SSH, and the evidence that we collect is put on that server. Our own private stuff we do keep on our computer, and we do have a cloud backup system that, some of the more intelligent of us actually use. Anything else?
But that's your job, to be able to hack into people's computers to see who's vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
You have to report them, make a report out occasionally.
For in the company?
Yeah.
No, it's usually that stuff usually takes care of itself, and there's never any repercussions for this. If someone really is an idiot, then there would be repercussions for it. It wouldn't be. It would be handled appropriately. My boss is mean, but he's not so mean as to. Yeah. So. But there's no. We've never made a report on a person. We do. Part of the reason I don't talk to people actually, or so much, is because we have developers at our company that are actually real developers, and the pen testers will test the developer's software. But if I'm telling the developer you should do it this way, I won't be able to break into it that way, then I'm not going to test that part very good. It's best that I go into it not knowing what's happening as if it's any other client. So to some extent, our company tends to keep the pen testers separate from the rest of the company so that we can audit our own stuff. Anything else?
Share your breaks with each other?
Our break-ins?
Yeah.
We usually work all of us together at the same time and in different aspects because each of us has different strengths and weaknesses. I tend to be good at, like, if you give me a problem, I'll mess with it all day, which is also a problem. But Patrick is awesome at, he will search every single file you have for any little information that you might have. And he finds the craziest stuff. So each of us has our own abilities, and we implement each of us on any test. We also see that, like, when Patrick comes across a problem that he knows that I could really sink my teeth into, we pass it around and that kind of stuff.
Do you then take this your game results and then actually use them on clients, etc. when you're doing pen testing? You have to get approved by your boss or like that.
This stuff has taught me a great deal about PAM modules and that kind of stuff. So most of this stuff has been directly useless in pen testing, so to speak. But the problem-solving aspects of it, the ideas of watching these things put together mean something bad, those aspects of it, I feel like keeps me sharper and helps me better understand the stuff that I'm looking at. It also inspires me to understand operating systems better and those kinds of things. But other than when I actually go on site somewhere, it doesn't affect it too much.